Good evening. It is Thursday, March 2nd, 2017, and this is S. Gold crawling out of the woodwork to bring you the third in this video series, which might be titled Adventures in Developing Free Software. The application we're looking at here was written in Java using JMonkey Engine and Nifty GUI. It looks like the rudiments of some sort of space game, but the name is Test BindScreen. What a very boring name for a game. Well, it looks like some sort of space game. Not much of a user interface is visible. Just a bit of text on the bottom. It says press H key. Well, who cares about that? Being a typical user, I don't follow instructions, so I'll start by pressing some keys and seeing what happens. Here's the W key. Ooh, that's nice. And here's the A key. Wow, now we're turning and moving at the same time. And the D key, so now we're turning the other direction. And the S key, full stop. Well, this is certainly a neat effect, like we're traveling through an infinite starfield. And if, like me, you were born before 1970, you might have the Star Trek theme going through your head. If not, the message about warp factor 1 will probably tip you off to which media franchise the game creator had in mind. Well, the mouse isn't doing much of anything useful. I'll click around, nothing happens. So the game appears to be entirely keyboard driven. A look at the hotkey bindings might actually be helpful. So I am going to press that H key. Okay, so this is BindScreen. It's the real reason for this video. BindScreen is a software component I'm working on that allows users to reconfigure an application's hotkeys on the fly. At the top, it says I'm editing the default input mode. Input mode is another software component of mine. In a real game, there would be other input modes, a mode for character generation, a mode for navigating menus, a mode for chat, and so on. And in fact, BindScreen itself is implemented using an input mode called bind mode. I'm not sure what would happen if you tried editing it with BindScreen, though. The function of BindScreen is to connect or bind hotkeys to actions in the context of a particular input mode. So on the left, we have a nifty list box. It really is kind of nifty for selecting hotkeys. You can scroll through it, make selections using the mouse. Or you can press keys on the keyboard. So like the D key highlights the D hotkey. And there's a lot of them. The bound ones show up first and then the unbound ones. I'm not sure what the unlabeled key is, but if your keyboard has one, you can use bind key to program it for you. On the right, there's another nifty list box, and this one is for selecting actions that can be initiated by hotkeys. In addition to game actions like accelerate forward, there are some debugging actions like simple app hide stats, and that's used to toggle performance statistics. And then there's some general purpose actions like edit bindings. Anyway, there's quite a few of them here. And of course, simple app exit, that's the one you use to get out of the game. If your game needs the F5 and escape keys for game actions, you can use BindScreen to bind other keys to those actions and then bind other actions to those keys. Another reason to rebind hotkeys might be if you have an unusual keyboard, such as a Dvorak Simplified. Using the WASD keys for movement isn't so convenient if you have a Dvorak Simplified keyboard, in which case you might want to bind the accelerate forward action to the comma key. Let's just go ahead and do that. Select accelerate forward, press the comma button, comma key, and that gives me the selections I need, and then I press this bind button here. And voila, you can see that both the W key and the comma key are bound to accelerate forward. You can use either key, but while you can bind multiple keys to the same action, you can't bind multiple actions to the same key. So when you select a hotkey that's already bound, pick one up here, the bind button goes away. I mean, it's still there, but the label's gone. It doesn't do anything. You have to unbind the key before you can rebind it to a different action. And here's something interesting. There's an action here called express feelings that's not bound to any key. So let's go over here and bind it to, say, the P key. Bind. And now we'll go back into the game and press the P key. And I get this message that says, I have a bad feeling about this. Sorry, wrong franchise. But we've actually added a function to the game that wasn't there before. I'm going to press H again to go back into BindScreen. For the finished product, you might want to unbind these debugging actions, the C, and I'm going to unbind that. Oops, I just selected in the hotkeys. Unbind the selected hotkey. And the P key, well, not that one, the F5, we could unbind that. And the memory debugging, let's unbind that. So I select each hotkey by pressing the key on the keyboard and then clicking on the unbind button. You could even unbind the H key, in which case the user would have no way to actually get into BindScreen. Goodbye. Well, there's no accounting for taste. Now, each input mode can have a configuration file which is read or loaded during startup. The file system path to the configuration file for the input mode being edited is displayed down here at the bottom of the screen. If you edit the bindings and then decide you don't like the changes, an easy way to revert them is to just load them from the file again. And now you see express feelings is gone, edit bindings is back. Express feelings is gone, edit bindings is back, because we loaded them from the original file. And of course, you can save the edited bindings to a configuration file, in which case they'll load automatically next time you start the application. Now, back to the starfield effect. This is actually kind of interesting bit of programming. The backdrop uses some textures that I generated for sky control. See the previous episode for details. The simulated camera isn't actually moving when you go warp 1 or warp 2 or warp 3. What's actually happening is that each individual star, there's thousands of them, the foreground stars, thousands of them are being individually moved toward the camera, or away from it in some cases. If you go backwards, and they're moving away from you. And even though the foreground stars are finite, the star field seems infinite, because as the objects pass out of range, they wrap around to approach the camera again and again and again. And the effect actually looks best with anti-aliasing cranked all the way up to 16x, because then you don't get so much flickering. Of course, the software to do all this, BindScreen, the starfield app state, the nifty GUI, and JMonkey Engine, all these are free as in freedom software, which you can download from GitHub. You can build, study, and adapt them for your own projects. On GitHub, I'm Stephen Gold, that's with a PH, STEPHENGOLD. BindScreen and Starfield State can be found in my JME3 Utilities repository. Nifty GUI belongs to a user named Void256, and JMonkey Engine is also easily findable on GitHub and elsewhere. That's all for tonight. This is S. Gold signing off. Good night, world, and sweet dreams.